shirt from rulethewasteland.com. As you can see, this is the updated version where it's slightly bigger, slightly higher on the shirt. So this is what they'll look like if you buy them from now on. Link will be in the description. This video is about a mini rocket stove that I made. It seems like all the cool kids are doing rocket stove videos these days. And it's something I've been planning on doing for a while and just never got around to it. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. Everyone's doing it. But I wanted to try because I got a couple commercial ones that I'm going to do videos on and compare them to this, test them out. But I want to try and make my own. Rogue Preparedness did a video on making one recently, which I've seen the design, you know, of using cans and stuff like that before. And I decided to make a very small one. This is like the smallest I've seen anyone make. This is a little can from like pineapple juice. I don't know if you can see the top there. I have another one of those inside like a Progresso soup can, and then I surrounded it with some sand for insulation. So the general idea of a rocket stove is that because of the shape, it creates a chimney effect where the air is coming in here and the heat is all going straight up into whatever pot you're making. So the advantages are it uses less fuel, which it burns more completely, and all the heat is directed right up into the pot, which is accentuated if you do any sort of insulating effect in here with rocks or sand or stone or whatever. So it just uses a lot less fuel and works very quickly, and there's not a lot of smoke and things like that. There were some unique challenges with you, and this is so you can have the fuel rest on top of here and then the air goes underneath it. Being this small, there were some unique challenges with it, and I'll talk about more about those in a second. But all I used to make this thing was these Fisker. These things are great. They could easily cut through the can material. You just punch a hole with like a nail or something like that, or a drill, and then you can just cut out with these. And so I didn't use any sort of connection. I just made the holes and crammed it together. And that's it. Pretty simple design. I started it with, that was one of the things I thought would be a challenge because of the small size of this chamber in here. It was going to be a little bit more difficult to get the fire started on the inside. So I started it with some of this fire starter, InstaFire, which link will be in the description as well. Worked really well. Only used about a third or a quarter to a third, probably a quarter of this pack to start the fire. And then I had some scrap wood that I picked up from the shooting range of all places. And I got 2 cups of water to just boiling, like not a rolling boil, but to where there's bubbles all over the bottom of the container and bubbles starting to come up. And then I basically called it. And that's plenty hot enough if you leave it that way for a few minutes to pasteurize water, purify water, and to use it for coffee or even cooking something like a Mountain House or this backpacker's pantry. A lot of times all you need is 2 to 4 cups of water that's about boiling, and you pour it into there and mix it up. I had one piece that I made, you'll see in the video, to set on top of this, and that was one of the things, because it took me about 12 minutes to get to that boiling point, but most of that reason was because of the size of this thing. It took me a little bit of technique that I had to learn to keep the fire going. But another issue was the pot, I think, was a little too high. The stand put it about that high. Whereas if you could put it like this high, what I'm going to use next time is the lid from the Solo stove that I have. That fits on there pretty perfectly. And you could set that and it would get more airflow. Another issue that I had was because of the small size of the combustion chamber in there, is that the fuel, if it was too big, it would turn basically into ash or charcoal, and there wasn't enough other fuel in there to keep it going. And if it was too small, like I started with these coffee stirrers, it would just burn up too quickly and not use enough heat. So I started out with pieces that were a little bit too big, and it started to build up some like ash and charcoal in there. So the key to using this tiny stove, I think, would be to use fuel that was about the size of a pencil. No bigger, maybe half the size of a pencil to the size of a pencil, and no bigger and no smaller. Because, like I said, if it's too small, like these really thin stirrers, it just burns up real quick, and you can't get a big enough flame. And if it's too big, then it'll just ash over, charcoal over, and you don't have enough room to put more fuel in there to burn it completely. Because the fire will burn up that ashy or charcoal wood if you have other flames still going in there. But if there's only 1 or 2 pieces of wood in there because of how small this is, then you're going to have trouble. The thing that was amazing was that even for 15 minutes, 12 to 14 minutes, whatever it was, of operation, it burned a shockingly small amount of wood. So I got this water to boiling with at most of this much wood. Probably more like 2 of these pieces. I was absolutely shocked at like how little wood it took me to get that amount of water to that temperature at that point. So you're talking about like effectively 1 log that you could split up or less, a couple little pieces of pretty inferior wood. I mean, this is not like seasoned hardwood or anything like that. This is pine from, you know, processed construction type wood that normally burns up really quickly, not very hot, just, you know, quickly and brightly. So, and I collected this stuff that had been outside. Yes, it's the desert, but it had been outside probably for years. And yeah, that was it, man. About a quarter of a pack of these to get started, and then probably just a handful of wood. Pretty amazing. So I'll cut to that footage now so you can see it in action. Here we got it before I've used it. As you can see, it's just sand around the outer edges, and then 2 of the mini cans put together. In hindsight, it might be better, just because of the sheer size of this thing, to not have the interior can, or to make the interior can just a regular size can and have less of an insulating wall and a bigger combustion area. It might make it easier to use. This is the Instafire fire starter, just their general version. They have a couple different versions, if I'm not mistaken. This first size piece that I put in the bottom there is too big. Here you see the rudimentary top that I made for it, and it worked to hold the water, but it lifted it too high away from the flame. There's no reason for it to be that far away from the flame on such a small stove, and I don't think it gave it quite enough breathability. Pretty good flame, as you can see here, and it got the water pretty much to boiling, fogging up my camera. So overall, I was pretty surprised at how well it worked and how efficient it was. But the main issue is definitely you needed the size of the wood had to be very specific, and you got to work on some technique for cycling it in and out to make sure it burns completely. So let me know what you guys think. If you think this is too small, there's really no reason to make it this small, or if this could be a useful kind of thing even to have on hand. The cool thing about these is not necessarily that you need to have one on hand, but because of how simple they are. Literally, just use a couple of empty cans, these snips, and you could use a knife or some other tool too, and then sand or whatever, is you can make these in a lot of different places. Even if you find yourself without some gear or without your stove and you're just, you know, find some trash, you can construct a rudimentary rocket stove that will still work pretty darn well. So in the future, like I said, the things that I would change, the main thing I would change is the device that I sit on top. This commercial one from the Solo stove is really good. Link will be in the description. But if you have that, you might as well just use your Solo stove. And then controlling the size of the wood so that they're no bigger than this, so that there isn't too many big pieces of charcoal left in there to clog up the chamber. Other than that, I was pretty surprised with how well this worked, and definitely surprised with how efficient it was. And it didn't create a lot of smoke as long as the wood was, burning well. So there's not a big chance of it giving you away or anything like that. Let me know what you guys think. Links to all the stuff I used, like these, the fire starter, will all be in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.